going to go ahead and start because most everybody's here, and I know we have a full schedule today. I want to say thank you all for coming. This is our 173rd event, and it's our second virtual event, and we thank you for being with us. We've been doing this on a monthly basis since May 2005, and we have not had a in-person event since February, and we were in Rockport at the time. So we're looking forward to seeing you all again in person as soon as we can, but in the meantime, we're going to continue these virtual events. And I want to go ahead and recognize a couple of special guests we have with us today. Our first presentation is going to focus on the Petra and Mifflin Kennedy and the book Petra's Legacy that some of you may be familiar with. The authors of that book are with us today. Jane Mundy. Hi, Jane. Want to wave at everybody? And also Frances Vick. I saw her somewhere. Frances, are you still with us? Yes. Hi. One of these ladies is from Dallas, and one of them is joining us from Huntsville, Texas. And after the presentation, and just a few minutes about the Kennedys, they are going to be available to answer any questions you might have, because the presentation was based on and created and written based on their book. So I'm going to go ahead and let Carol Rettmeyer from the Corpus Christi Museum of Science and History, wherever she is, I'm going to go ahead and let her start in just a minute. But we're glad to have those folks with us. Also from the Kennedy Ranch Museum is Homero Vera. Wave to us, Homero. And then again, Sylvia Whitmore, the CEO of the Kennedy Memorial Foundation. She's from Corpus Christi. So anyway, Carol, I'm going to go ahead, and it's 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. I'm coming from you today from Lake Corpus Christi, and I appreciate you all being with us, and we're going to move along, and I promise I'm going to quit talking now and give it to Carol. Yes.
Oh, terrific. First of all, thank you so much for letting the museum, or the Corpus Christi Museum of Science and History, and we are so delighted to be here. And a special thanks to Homero for your insights and helping us put this together. We have a presentation with our actors. So we've done a reenactment. We've taken some artistic liberty. So Homero, Sylvia, thank you for being here, for your insights, and Jane and Frances, because it was based on your book. So we've taken some liberties, so we're so thrilled you're here so you can answer the real questions. So this is a reenactment, sort of a fun piece, looking into the parlor in our Kennedy gallery we actually have here at the museum, with actual artifacts from the Kennedy household. So I think you'll enjoy it. This was a first take to make it in our time period. We are probably going to add even more material, and we welcome Jane and Frances and Homero, other ideas and things you have to further enhance the story that we're going to tell. But I think you'll enjoy it. These are our own actors. They're full-time here at the museum, and that's the highlight. So it's in the gallery. It takes place during a party that was held at the home, and hopefully you'll get the gist of it. So without further ado,
thank you for coming to the gallery, my dear Patricia. It means a lot.
Well, you do know I prefer the sounds of a family home to the sounds of champagne corks, but for Captain Mifflin Kennedy, I thought I'd make an exception tonight. Also, thought I'd perhaps have a talk about staying countryside again.
Oh, my sweet Petra. Corpus Christi will continue to grow, and we will be there, nipping at its heels, hurrying it right along. I know it's not your first choice, but once our dream home is finished, we can have a quiet moment of comfort.
You can take the man out of the business, husband. You can't take the business out of the man.
Clever as always. Speaking of business, here comes Uriah and Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Uriah, my good sir.
Mifflin, we're hoping to make our way to you before too long. Petra.
Uriah.
Always a joy.
Mary, it was a pleasure as
Lovely,
always.
nice to see you again. And what of Henrietta and Captain King?
Perhaps stuck making their rounds in conversation.
Well, the gala has been quite something. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, John Palmer doesn't know how to celebrate.
Salud.
Salud!
He definitely knows how to give a speech, though.
Yes.
I could have turned red by the way he was praising us. And the silver service set, more than I would have expected. But it will get its use.
I usually won't be so well tracked.
Aren't you forgetting something, Uriah?
Oh, Mary, thank you, my dear, for reminding me. Petra Mifflin, would you mind joining us? I think I have something you would enjoy.
Yes, of course.
Right this way.
Sally. What a beautiful telescope.
Beauty indeed. May I?
Oh, of course. I would read the inscription first.
I shouldn't have. Thank you, my friend.
Oh, of course, of course. But it was not a difficult choice. I mean, where do you get somebody who always approaches his endeavors with such a keen vision?
You can only give them something to expand their vision.
Mifflin, you struck gold with Petra.
Mary, why don't we go catch up? Leave the gentlemen to their own devices.
So,
You want to tell Richard, but I got him something as well.
well, if my gift was any indication of a thought you put towards his, I could only imagine.
Well, I wanted to give him something he would like, but also something to represent his pugnacious tenacity. So I got him a bronze pit bulldog.
Oh, we may not be able to tell the difference between the two. Let us toast, Uriah. To the success of the Texas-Mexico Railway Company. The route is the difference Corpus Christi needed, not to mention the safer, quick way of transporting cattle, a win all around.
Well, let's also include a toast to the efforts that ourselves and King put toward the railroad.
You have not had a better choice of partners. You did quite the load to bear. Promotions, building, and management, they're quite the plateful.
Thank you for your kind words, my friend. But if not for the additional investment from you and King, not to mention your continuous support, it would have all been for naught. I was not envious when you had to go up to New York and deal with Wall Street, I must add.
I did want to ask, is it true I heard about the rail spike you drove in, the gilded one?
Yes. Drove it in one day, by the next morning it was gone. Now, I'll admit, the gilded spike was deceiving, but for somebody to steal it that night, also a panic pyrite. Now, I know we've had our share of the unusual, but that's probably my favorite story. Wow. And speaking of those stories, I mean, just imagine, Mifflin, where we have come from and where we are today. Consider yourself. Successful steamboat captain, with quite the reputation for his ease of navigation and quick trips. Revolutionary figure in the cattle trade. You probably lost track after the first million, so you dealt with.
Right, you are.
Not to mention, honest and hardy businessman. One of the best I've had the pleasure of knowing.
Well, I do miss the Corvette.
She was a beauty.
She can handle the water. But you're right, you speak too highly of me. Really, but also bore fruit. You went from being employed at a commission house at Corpus Christi to running an owner in only 4 years. How you went from transporting wool and hides to New York to saying, what about railroad? Is beyond me.
Sometimes myself.
But who might have questioned? At least the old Lot's Folly business is behind you, right?
A little too soon, Mifflin. Just a little too soon.
But enough about me. How long has it been now for you and Mifflin?
Oh, Mary, it's been 30 years.
Oh, goodness.
I can still remember the hot Texas sun beating down in Brownsville the day we got married. Oh, the ceremony was beautiful. And there was Mifflin, 36 years old. Oh, with the eagerness he must have had in his younger years.
Well, he is fortunate to have found such a great companion and equal. Your intellect and generosity do not go unnoticed.
Oh, Mary, thank you.
You are originally from Mia, correct?
Yes, I was born in Mexico back in 23, if you can believe it. Yes, my family has lived in the northern side of Mexico for generations. You know, back in 42, when the Texans invaded Mier, there I was, helping the sick and wounded. but alas, my heart was always in Brownsburg with my family. The positive is that now that Mifflin and I are here, we'll be closer to Sarah and Arthur, although they do enjoy their social life a little bit more than myself.
Yes. I'm used to that.
Now, Mary, I did get you something. I hope you don't mind.
Oh my goodness, Petra!
The men got all the praise they deserve tonight. But where would they be without the strong women by their side?
Completely lost. Petra! I'm speechless. I didn't know you were going to get me something. It's gorgeous. Oh my goodness. And here I am with nothing in return.
Oh, don't you concern yourself with that, Mary. All I can ask for is your friendship in return.
Oh,
I'm sure the wagon driver still have hard feelings.
No, of course. Oh, goodness. Where has the time gone? Let us rejoin the wines before we allow the night to escape us.
Right you are, Uriah.
I might even need a refill. Apologies, ladies. You seem to have gotten carried away.
oh, don't worry. I was in great company.
You know, King's been gone for far too long. I suggest we track down our third man of the hour.
I agree, fella.
Go. We took some liberties, and hopefully you could hear. We had a little bit of sound issues and also in the translation, so we'll be making some corrections. Hopefully you could hear enough of it and got the gist. And I'm hoping that Homero and Jane and Francis, you can fill in and give a little more insights.
Does anybody have any questions for them or comments? What I'd like to know is where can they purchase your book?
I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Jane Monday. You can certainly get it on Amazon. You can get it at A&M Press. And either one of those two. Fran, do you want to add anything to that?
Is mentioned both places that you can buy Petra. I was just reading over Petra again. I'm so glad I was involved with this with Jane Monday, that she called me and said help, and I responded. I love this book, and I love what I just saw. This is great. It was great. It was great seeing them reenact those pieces of, well, the great celebration.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they did a great job with actors. I really commend them for the job they did on acting. Also, you can also order the Petra's Legacy online at the Kennedy Ranch Museum. We have a website at kennedy.org. You can go to the museum section and pay on PayPal, and we'll ship the book to you.
Great. Great to know that. Thanks, Homero.
One thing the group might be interested in, Uriah Lott was an interesting person. And first of all, I'd like to thank the staff and the director at the museum. They have a beautiful display and they keep the Kennedy legacy going, and it's a marvelous thing. And these actors did a great job. But Uriah was an interesting person. He's an innovator and a discoverer and very persistent, but he was not a financier. And regretfully, he died in poverty, and he died over in Kingsville and was buried there. And at some point during their marriage, his wife, Mary, ended up selling that ring and in order to get money to help them in their latter days. But I found an interesting note the other day that Ed Chamberlain actually tried to buy that ring back, but Mary had already sold it to a company in New York. So I think certainly the lots had their ups and downs, but they made a major contribution to Corpus Christi and South Texas through their transportation and his envision of the railroads as well as water traffic.
That was so well done. It's one thing to read a book, which is impactful, but to see it reenacted really does, it brings these people to life again. They were extraordinary people in extraordinary times that did extraordinary things. And that's why we are where we are today, really.
Absolutely.
Celebrate our 150th event at the Kennedy Ranch and learned a lot about the family at that time, and appreciate the opportunity to actually see this presentation today and to have you ladies with us, and Homero and Sylvia from the foundation. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it all.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
So if there are no more questions for these folks, we're going to move on to our next presentation. And this is being put on by the Nueces County Historical Commission. Representative, their chairperson is Kathy Weimer, Corpus Christi, and then a member of the Nueces County Historical Commission, Penny Pelak, who also happens to be on the Texas Tropical Trail Board. And Penny lives part-time in Ola Dulce and part-time in Port Aransas. And they're going to tell us a little bit about some of the different art in murals in Corpus Christi. And I was aware of some of these items, but I did not realize there was so much to see in Corpus Christi. So they're going to encourage you to take a little driving trip on your own and check it out. So Penny and Kathy, I'm going to turn it over to you, please.
Good morning. Good to be here and good to see everybody. I have a PowerPoint today, so Mike, I'm ready when you're ready. Oh. Art is not usually viewed as a tourist attraction, but it should not be overlooked. It's been said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and that's how I view most artwork. There are some pieces I just don't get, and others that I buy a postcard, the poster, and take many photos. When I visit another city, I am always drawn to the art, whether it's a statue, a mural, painting on a doorway. We often think of the great art pieces in Europe, but art is everywhere, and Corpus Christi is really no exception. Next. Murals typically add color and impact to drab exteriors of underutilized or abandoned buildings. An urban planner stated, they are fun, creative, and give something for people to look at, such as this vintage postcard looking Greetings from Corpus Christi, Texas. It showcases all the things that make Corpus unique: the Harbor Bridge, the USS Lexington, the Bob Hall Pier, Selena, and lots more. It's located on Mesquite Street in downtown Corpus, and it was unveiled in 2018, and the artist was Jeremy Flores. Next. It Is I is a 14-foot bronze statue of Jesus sitting on a red granite base with 10 sides. Local artist Kent Ulberg was the sculptor, while local architect Jim Bobbs designed the heavy base. It was the idea of Dorothy McCoy, as she wanted to honor her son Bob, who was killed in an automobile accident in 1991. Kent Ulberg always includes a heart in his work, and this one has a special place in his heart, as he also lost a son in an automobile accident in 1987. The cost was $100,000, and it all came from private donations. Yes, there was controversy about this statue being placed there, but it is located on private property of the First United Methodist Church on Shoreline Boulevard. It was unveiled in October 1995, and over 100 people attended the dedication. Ulberg said that the idea is to reflect the literal storm as well as the metaphorical storms of life. the internal as well as the external, a symbol of healing and compassion in the midst of the stresses and strains of daily life. Next. Ulberg and the church were able to accomplish what others had only dreamed of. Others had proposed a statue of Christ. Gutzon Borglum, the Mount Rushmore sculptor, had proposed a 32-foot statue of Christ as part of the Bayfront improvements, but his project was stalled by Mount Rushmore work and eventually was shelved for lack of federal funds. But it was inevitable that a statue of Christ would be prominently displayed in Corpus Christi, the body of Christ. Next. Another controversial artwork is the Queen of the Sea fountain sculpture, located on Schatzel and People Street on Lower Broadway. The Corpus Christi chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy commissioned it in 1914, dedicated it in 1915 to honor their fathers, brothers, and husbands who died fighting in the Civil War. The daughters paid $1,000 to Pompeo Copini to do the work. You may recognize his name as the sculptor of the cenotaph at the Alamo, the statue of Jefferson Davis at the state capitol, the Sol Ross statue at Texas A&M University, or the monument which marks the grave of Sam Houston in Huntsville. Copini, an Italian, stated, "I felt that I was reborn a Texan." Next. You won't see a soldier or a gun on the Queen of the Sea. Instead, you will find a sculpture depicting Corpus Christi as a maiden standing between Neptune, the god of the sea, and Mother Earth. You will find a dolphin lying in the bay, a farmer with his plow tilling the soil. Helen Lilly Macaulay of Corpus Christi modeled for Copini. She is the face in the center and was 17 years old. She went on to be the first woman lawyer to try a case in China, while her husband served as commander of the U.S. Navy river gunboat El Caño on the Yangtze River. Next. Although Copini was paid $1,000, additional funds were paid by the two newspapers operating in Corpus Christi at that time. The Corpus Christi Rotarians were also instrumental in securing the fountain. The fountain has been restored more than once. The salt air hasn't been kind to this statue. The last time was just a couple of years ago to the tune of $50,000 by the city of Corpus Christi. This was the first public work of art purchased by the city. Next. The Endless Sunset, the colors of our city. This mural was under the direction of Sandra Gonzalez and painted in panels by many artists. It's located on the Corpus Christi Caller-Times building on Lower Broadway. The building was erected in 1935, and this mural was unveiled in 2016. It's 64 feet wide by 34 feet tall. Look for the sea turtle, the redfish, the trout, the Texas state seashell, the lightning whelk, lots of colorful flowers, various seabirds, a starfish, red snapper, all while incorporating the style of Mexican embroidery. Next. Selena Quintanilla Pettis, the queen of Tejano music, holds a special place in the story of Corpus Christi. She was incredibly talented and was popular across the world. She was tragically killed in 1995 at the age of 23. Mirador del Alflor, or Overlook of the Flower, features a life-size bronze statue which was sculpted by Buddy Tatus of Corpus Christi in 1997. Over 30,000 people come from around the world every year to pay homage to Selena. Next. The giant metal weather vane-like abstraction known as Orion's Belt was another controversial item. The city council rejected the idea in 1999 as they didn't think there had been enough public input. But the only question they really had was, could the vanes withstand hurricane force winds? The vanes are 50 feet stainless steel towers. Next. In May 2000, the City Council approved the Bayfront artwork and agreed to pay Robert Perlis of Connecticut $200,000. In 2002, just 2 years later, the veins were already rusting and needed a thorough cleaning with instant rust out. And so they also applied a polymer wax as a finish. Perlis actually flew in personally from Connecticut to assist with the cleaning. Next. Strong alone, fearless together represents female leaders in the community, as well as different YWCA programs available. The mission of the Y is to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. The artists were Sandra Gonzalez and Monica Garcia, with many volunteer artists working on panels. They would paint each panel and then put it together, just as they did at the one at the newspaper office. It was unveiled in 2019 and it's located on Corona Drive. Next. Half of all Navy and Marine Corps aviators train in Corpus. They leave their mark on Corpus and many come back to settle here. In 2017, the South Texas Aviator Memorial Association built a bronze statue and memorial garden in Ropes Park on Ocean Drive. Next. It includes a 7-foot statue of an aviator in flight gear, standing at the ready. He is placed on top of a large pedestal featuring the seals of each military branch. It is meant to represent all the pilots, flight officers, and aircrew. Benches surround the aviator, providing a place to enjoy an unobstructed view of the bay. Ropes Park holds a special significance to the pilots at NAS Corpus, since the statue is visible on their final approach to runway 13R. Next. Loteria, Spanish for lottery, is a favorite game for all ages. This was unveiled in October 2015. It's 52 feet wide and 24 feet tall and depicts each card in a Loteria deck. It was chosen from over 130 original designs that were submitted. It's located on North Chaparral Street between Antelope and Star Streets. Next. This was originally located at a private residence, and it would be painted for the seasons and holidays, and people would line up to see what the new design was. However, after the owner of the house passed away, the cone was moved to the Ronald McDonald House. Unfortunately, they haven't kept up the tradition. On the left is a photo I took during Halloween a few years ago, and on the right is the plain ice cream that I took a picture of a couple of days ago. Next. A man and a woman are inspecting a car for sale. The car is a 1953 Corvette. It was commissioned as an homage to the car sellers who would park their cars on that same corner. Apparently, the owner of the property didn't particularly like those people trying to sell their cars there, so he put up this steel frame covered with chicken wire and encased in ferro cement. The sculptor was Danny O'Dowdy, and this is located in Hamlin Shopping Center on Staples Street. Next. No visit is complete to Corpus without a visit to Whataburger, which began in 1950 in Corpus Christi by Harmon Dobson and Paul Burton. They wanted a burger so big that you could hold it with 2 hands, and it only cost 35 cents.
Wow.
Do any of you remember the jingle that used to be on TV and the radio? I'm not a singer. What a burger, big and round. Always get a quarter pound. Onions, mustard, pickles too. What a burger, you'll love it too. Be sure to go by Whataburger on the bay at 121 North Shoreline. Have a seat with Mr. Dobson and take a selfie. Next. And while you're there, go upstairs to the 2nd floor and look at the mural, Flags Over Texas. It was created in 1985 by Bill Wilhelm. Next. And don't forget to go to Whataburger Field to see the statue for the love of the game. It was created by Dallas artist Seth Vanderbilt. It's 17 feet tall from head to toe and situated on a 5-foot tall pedestal. The player is wearing a cotton uniform that honors the history of the area. Whataburger Field is built on the old cotton warehouse site. It's believed to be the largest bronze baseball player monument in the world, being taller than Mighty Casey that's located in Miami, which is only at 14 feet. Next. Great cities understand the value of great public art, sculptures, and other visual media that are accessible by everyone and typically outdoors, including murals, sculptures, and works on canvas and paper. Corpus has more than 50 taxpayer-owned public art pieces, as well as numerous works that have been privately funded. Chances are you have driven by them. Go again and really check them out. It's an art adventure in Corpus, and everything I've shown you today is free to see. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Ready to move on to our next program. And we have visited this particular museum that's going to show us some of their treasures today. It's the Texas State Museum of Asian Cultures. It's in Corpus Christi. It's in the Museum District under the Harbor Bridge, near the Corpus Christi Museum of Science and History, near the Art Museum. It's been there for several years, but hasn't had the traffic that a lot of the museums have had, so we're hoping to change that. And today we have Richard Hafmeister with us. He's the Director of Operations for the museum, and he is going to tell us a little bit about a collection that they have, and I'm sure not going to pronounce it correctly, I'm sure, but Haniwa. It's terracotta. Hey, did I do it correctly? Great. Anyway, it's terracotta figures that are used in the burials. Anyway, Richard, I'm going to turn it over to you now. I think you might be muted.
Let me double check.
There we go.
There we go. All right, guys. So my name's Richard. As Nancy mentioned, I'm Director of Operations out here. And we've got a quick video for you guys. We'll show you guys a little bit about the museum itself and then about the Haniwa. Thank you guys for joining us out here. Thank you guys for having us. This is really a fun opportunity for us. We've been doing distance learning videos, like Valerie mentioned earlier, the word pivot that, yeah, it's been driving everybody nuts all year, but we've pivoted to video and distance learning at every chance we can, which isn't everything, but is a good chunk. So myself and Nick, which are the two you'll see in the video, have been doing a lot of that, as well as a couple of our other instructors. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you guys want to go ahead and start the video, and then I can answer any questions afterwards. But I think we pretty well cover it, so you want to go ahead and start.
Anyway, what are they? Where do they come from? What is their significance? Today we're doing a special video on a particular artifact that we don't exactly get to talk too much about. So join Richard and I as we dive into the mysterious world of the Haniwa, only here today at the Texas State Asian Culture Museum.
Alrighty guys, so my name's Richard, and first we're going to cover why, this is always the first question we get here, why there is a Asian Cultures Museum in Little Old Corpus Christi. And the reason for that was that the museum was originally the brainchild and kind of a labor of love of one lady back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s named Billie T. Chandler. She's the museum's founder, and what she did was she traveled all over Asia, in fact all the way into the Middle East and Egypt at times, but really she was in Japan. That was her favorite part. She spent about 20 years traveling, and about 17 of them were in Japan. And what she did at first was she was teaching Western history to students, American dependents living on the military bases with their families, stationed overseas. She was teaching it to them, and so she's teaching Western history. And as she gets more and more comfortable, more and more native, more and more talented, because she's now spent the time there, has the native knowledge, she starts teaching Eastern history. But we start with the Western stuff, including she had about 53 paintings of Abraham Lincoln done. You heard me right. We believe all of them from her original collection. And what she did was she had local artists make these for her. They would stop and make these paintings of these various historical scenes so that she would have the opportunity to use them in place of a PowerPoint or slideshow at the time, presentation to show to everyone, which is also why we have the Genpei War paintings back here. The thing with the Genpei War paintings is they're actually one of the most recent ones that we've crawled through and recreated the original lectures, modernized them a little bit. And we actually just did those for our distance learning video series a couple weeks ago. We recently finished that up because it's a nice thing we can do both distance learning, and they'll be one of the safest things when we can restart having on-site presentations and lectures, hosting things again. In fact, I'm going to show you guys something a little bit special up in our library. This is some of the slides from Miss Chandler's classroom when she was teaching in Japan. So this is some of the slides of Miss Chandler's classroom here. And this has really been important for us to go through and look at them, digitize them. We're actually making a digital record of all of them that we can, and really look at them and drink in the history ourselves, because it really helps us understand what we're teaching to people. It's best for even the history people and for the experts to stop and reread the original notes and see how this was meant to be done in many cases. And as you may have guessed already, we have boxes and boxes of these. We've probably got about 4,000 or 5,000 slides here. So it's a fair number to go through, to look at, to digitize the whole bit. So it's a fair amount of work. I think with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to kick it back to Nick here and let him talk about the Haniwa. So thank you guys.
So Haniwa comes from Japan, and they were formed during the Kofun and the Soko period, so from 250 to 710 CE. The main purpose of these Haniwa, these terracotta clay structures, was for burial vessels to be buried with the elite of Japan. They were to be buried in these tombs known as kufun tombs or tumuli tombs. The basic structure of this tomb, you have a structure, a flat area like this, and then when they built them, they had that keyhole shaped figure. So picture the old style keyholes, with the half circle, semicircle thing, and then the triangle at the bottom without the tip as it goes into the circle. So something like that was buried, made there, dug in, and then you had the coffin put in, you had the Haniwa put in with the person. Then it was an earth mound, so it was covered up, and the earth came out, and then there was a moat that surrounded the tomb itself. So you had a body of water surrounding this tomb. So that began in as about as early as the 5th century, and they weren't as big. They were a pretty decent size, not even too big, but over time they did get bigger. And the largest of these tombs ever to be found was from the Emperor Nantuku, and his measured to be 823 meters long. Today in Japan, there are approximately 20,000 of these burial tombs all around, which is pretty impressive given the size of Japan itself. To find out all these tombs, just laid on across that island, and it's pretty great to see them. So, like I said, the purpose of these Haniwa, historians have believed that they are burial vessels. They come in different categories. The four main ones that we have here, we have, or the ones that they have is cylinders, you have structures, people, animals. So there are substitutes for actual objects that a person would be buried with, and they're a way of showing off the social elite of Japan. So the bigger the tomb, the more money you had. The more workers you had putting into this tomb, the more money you had, and especially the more Haniwa you had made for you or be buried with you. It shows just how successful and wealthy you were in regards in the society of Japan in that time period, which was pretty impressive. So much like the ancient pharaohs of Egypt, when they would be buried in their tomb underneath the pyramids, they lay in their coffin. And then you had things like this, these vases or, jars, things that sort of could hold their organs. You had golds and jewels buried with them, statue of the gods that they would worship during the lifetime, things to help them with their journey into the afterlife. So that's what the Heniwa did for these people that would be buried with them. So according to the Nihonshuki, or the Chronicles of Japan, written in 720, the Heniwa were also believed to replace the master's servants or slaves. So instead of having human sacrifices for people to be buried with their masters, the Heniwa took care of that. So the majority of the Heniwa came in cylinders, and these were more or less arranged not on the inside of the tomb, but more on the perimeter. So they surrounded the outside, and they were more like pedestals, so they would hold on, things like vases or like small structure of the animals, things like that. And they were like a marker for the tomb, so you know where the tomb was at when you saw these terracotta clay cylinders. So during the time period of the Kingdom of Xia in Korea, which is a pretty old time frame because it goes from the Joseon Dynasty to the Goryeo period, and then you have the three kingdoms, which one of them was Xia. So it's a pretty long time back. They used Heniwa. Of course, it'd be called something different, but they primarily used the animal structures for their tombs, and this is believed to influence the culture in now Japan. Although Korea used them as a way to protect the deceased and for the tomb not to be disturbed. In Japan, it was to protect the living and not the deceased. So ancestor worship and respect for the spirits of kami was heavily regarded and the long-held belief system in ancient Japan. So the meaning of Heniwa is clay ring. And as we discussed, these terracotta soldiers, these clay figurines, have come in all sorts of sizes. The most impressive being the human figures that you've seen here already. Just so intricate with their face, their structuring, and everything. So you have women carrying babies, you have them carrying water vessels on top of their heads, you have the armor for the soldiers, the men, you have this guy over here playing an instrument. So it looks kind of simple, but it really isn't. It's really intricate, to get into the design of everything. And of course you had animals, so you had, the sheep, the pigs, the horses. You have boats. You have riderless horses. We have Heniwa would come with horse riders, but then you have riderless horses. All these vases and everything. So it's pretty sweet. So Heniwa measured anywhere from 1.5 meters, which is about 3 feet. So from my hip all the way down to anything to below a meter, which would be something like these guys right here. These small ones. So whatever shape or size they come in, these Heniwa had a very significant purpose in the history and culture of Japan. And now we'll take it away to Richard, who will discuss the mechanics, the making of how these Heniwa are done.
So our Heniwa here, our dolls, our structures, are modern recreations. And they were commissioned by Billy Chandler again back in the 1950s. However, she wasn't the only one doing this at the time. There was a rather serious glut of research work being done on Heniwa dolls post-World War II. And that's because they're fairly hardy. The way they're made, which was relearned at about that same time by researchers, is by taking basically a water-based terracotta. It's really coarse. You can see on some of ours that have got a little dust to them. It's really coarse clay. And you take it, you pour it together, pour it out of your bucket of material essentially, and it comes out in coils, like a lazy snake, or like icing on a cake as you're doing it. And you take those coils, you mount them all the way up to the top, however tall you want the unit to be, and then you take a wooden paddle and you smooth it out, which is how you get like the smooth chest plate here, or the smooth on the side of the face. You smooth those pieces out, and then to do things like arms or the knobs on his armor and things like that, you literally go make a second entire piece. And by doing that, you can then bake it, fire it the same way, get it good and solid, and then re-wet both that and this, the main body, just enough where they would meet to where they'll basically weld together. You attach them, and you attach endless pieces like that. It is a little bit of extra work to do it this way. However, that does save a bunch of material because you end up with a hollow unit in the middle. It also saves a lot of weight by being hollow, which saves on your labor cost for moving them to install them in the first place, because you got to build them and then put them with the tubes. It's a fair bit of work. So, as a result, they're fairly hardy. Although they are hollow, they're fairly hardy because of the thick sidewalls and the fairly coarse clay being baked like that. However, they are hard to find out in the wild in their natural habitat, for lack of a better word, because A, it's been 1,500 years, they're hard to research them this long later, and B, their geology in Japan makes it a little difficult for anything to survive that long with the earthquakes and everything, so it's a little more difficult. So, I think that concludes our presentation. Thank you guys for joining us.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nick.
This is Richard.
Thank you for paying attention to our special edition on the Hidden Wall here at the Texas State Asian Culture Museum. Y'all stay safe. We'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Richard and Nick, for that great presentation. We certainly enjoyed it.
Our pleasure. That's my favorite part of the job. I was actually going to thank the last presentation talking about the murals and stuff. Several of those are down here in the C Arts District, places I drive past, and I'm now stopping and thinking about them more than I would have earlier. And that kind of reminds me of the whole mission of museums and stuff like this, to make you think about stuff you wouldn't have thought about, or to think about a little bit more in depth and more detailed, where it would have been just, you know, a passing fancy before. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you again on some more projects. So I'd like to ask Penny and Kathy if they could please put together a list of the items that they showed in their presentation and their location, so we can send it out with our follow-up email along with our survey. And that way, if any of you want to visit some of these areas that they showed, you'll have a map to get there. So we had a request for that. So Penny, if y'all can get that done, and Kathy, we'd appreciate it. And I think this is going to conclude our second virtual partner event for the day. And we're going to take a little break for about 5 minutes, and then the Tropical Trail Board is going to have our board meeting. But we appreciate the rest of you all being here with us for the day, this morning, and hope you enjoyed these wonderful programs. As Valerie said earlier, our October event is going to be in focusing on the Rio Grande Valley, and one of the programs is going to be the Harlingen Arts and Heritage Museum. We're still working on the other two museums, or whoever may help us, and so we'll get that information out to you soon. But we thanks again for you being here. Are there any questions anybody has before we sign off?
If anybody has any ideas or inspirations that they want to pass on to us, please do so. Another kind of organic thing that I really enjoyed about today's meeting is being able to interact, you know, museums being able to interact with each other and speakers being able to interact with each other. Tell us what we can do for you so we can be your megaphone, because that's what we're here for.
We are working on a museum project with the gift shops, and we have had a great response with that, and we appreciate that. And we hope to be able to put together something that you will be able to virtually visit some of these gift shops in the near future. Thanks again for being here. Mark October 20th on your calendar, and we hope to see you again then. Have a great day.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you all. Thank you very much, Denny.